So today, I was staying in a hotel about 275 miles from home. I've been in the city for a couple of days, but we just switched hotels last night due to the fact the other one was mold infested and filled with pests. How gross. Anyways, we were here to drop off my brother at college, and tonight was his last night with us before we left. We decided to have a silly string fight in the hotel parking lot and run around outside of the hotel for fun. You know, just doing some stupid teenager things. At one point, though, I noticed somebody was standing at the top of the stairs that led to the second floor of the motel, just watching us the entire time. No big deal at first. We were being pretty loud and obnoxious after all. My brother and my mom left though to bring my brother back to his dorm room. I decided to stay behind at the motel room, as all I had been doing for the past 3 days was riding in a car, and I really needed a break. I was on the phone with one of my friends, Adrian. I was just talking to Adrian on the phone when all of a sudden out of nowhere, someone knocked on the door using the exact same pattern my mom does. We had one of those secret knocks to let us know that one of us was knocking. I was just about to swing the door open without even checking like usual. I was 99% certain it must be my mother. As I went to do so though, something in my gut told me to look out the peephole first for some reason. The person standing outside my hotel room was not my mom. It was the same person who had been watching us earlier at the top of those stairs. I'm already a very paranoid person, so obviously I didn't just answer the door for him. Instead, I started freaking out and telling Adrian what was happening. After a few moments, the person began to yell through the door, "Open this fucking door right now!" He started to slam and bang against it. I sat there talking quietly to Adrian for 5 to 10 minutes, then slowly walked back up to the door to look through the peephole. Just as I'd gone towards it, the person began to slam their entire body weight against the door and started violently shaking the handle as well. At this point, I texted my brother at least 30 times to come back right away. He said they were about 10 minutes away and to just sit tight, and he was coming right back. He did come back as quickly as he could, but of course, by the time they got back there, the person was already gone. Maybe not the worst of experiences you've ever heard, but it really shook me off pretty good. Update. Last night I went to the front desk as we were leaving to go take my brother back to his dorm. I decided to go with them when the time came. I told them if anyone asked for a key card to my room in the meantime to not give it to them. Turned out this motel didn't require any ID or proof of you being in that room. You just ask for a key to room so-and-so and they give it to you. Apparently, my paranoia did pay off, because according to the front desk clerk, that same man came later that day and asked for a key to my room. I'm not sure what would have happened if I would have opened that door, or if they managed to obtain a key to my room so easily, and I'm glad I never have to find out. This happened to me in 2010. I was a college student at a school in a big city, which unfortunately was not in the best part of town. At the time, I was living in an off-campus apartment that didn't have dedicated parking spots. I always tried to park my car along either side of the building, right underneath the streetlight. On this particular day, however, I was only able to get a spot on the street behind the building. Around midnight, I left my apartment to drive to my then-boyfriend's house in another part of the city. He was a musician and was just getting home from a gig, hence the late-night meetup. I hated being outside in the city alone at night, but I hadn't seen my boyfriend in quite a while. I thought I could quickly make it to my car without much issue. To get to my car from my apartment, I had to walk out the front door of my building, turn the corner, walk alongside for about the length and width of a city block, and turn down the back street to where my car was parked. All in all, it should have taken no more than a few minutes. As I turned the corner to walk alongside my apartment building though, I saw a man now walking directly toward me. At first, I thought he was just walking in a similar direction, but immediately he started to call out to me once he noticed me. "Hey! Hey!" He was far enough away up the street that I thought I could make it to my car before he caught up to me. I quickened my pace, and so did he to keep up. He kept on calling out to me over and over. "Hey, can't you help me? I'm homeless. I need to get home." Obviously, that made no sense. The closer he got, the more I could tell he was clearly on drugs, or at least on something. He was gaining on me as well, all the while calling out to me, asking for money to get home. When I suddenly realized I wouldn't be able to make it to my car before he'd make it to me, I stopped dead in my tracks underneath the streetlight on the side of the building. I always walked with my keys in my hand, so I would never be stuck digging around for them at an inopportune time, much like this one actually. Thanks to my mom making sure I always made sure to stay safe in the city, my keys were complete with a chain of mace as well. By this time, the guy was a foot away from me, aggressively asking for money and telling me he needed to get home. I told him I had no money and couldn't help him. He moved closer until he was a few inches away from me. I picked up that mace, only for the streetlight to shine on it so perfectly the creep caught a glimpse of the shine and started to back away. The guy could have easily grabbed me, gotten violent and tried to snatch my purse or something, yet the mere sight of my mace was enough to get him to go away. He quickly sprinted off down the street. I sprinted to my car and sped away, shaking. Needless to say, I never walked to my car alone at night again. One of the most frustrating parts of this encounter is that it happened within sight of a city surveillance camera that wasn't functioning at the time. A few months prior to this incident, someone had tried to break into my car. When I asked the police and asked them to review the surveillance, they told me the cameras in that area didn't work and hadn't for a long time. Because of this, I knew there was no way this guy would have been caught either, which kept me constantly on edge. I thought that might have been the same guy who'd broken in before. I was so on edge that I actually moved out of the city entirely just a few months later. I need to get this off my chest. My fiancé, 27 and male, and I, 23 and female, are soon to be married and are remodeling an old family home. We started working on the house about 2 or 3 months ago actually. My fiancé bought a bunch of tools to use on the house to renovate. The house had been sitting with nobody in it for over a year now. Keep in mind it was also located in a fairly rural area. There were a few homes and trailers here and there, but really not much traffic, and very far in between all of them. We had a bit of a rodent problem and had been setting up some traps to catch them. 3 weeks ago, my fiancé went to check the traps, and we had a rat that was still alive. Long story short, he didn't want to take care of it, so he left. I got off work at 9 p.m. and went over to the house to see what I could do about this rat. It was raining, and my mom and brother came with me. I went to the back door, only to find it was wide open, and water was blowing into the house. I was beyond pissed. I thought my fiancé had left the door open when he'd gone. I shut it up and finished my business there. When my fiancé returned, I asked him quite angrily why he'd left the door open, and he claimed he never had. I'd simply called bullshit and left it at that. It didn't ever occur to me for some reason that somebody could have possibly been in there and made a quick getaway when I arrived. Fast forward to today. My fiancé and I went about our house to throw a whole bunch of trash and things into a dumpster we had rented. When we went inside, I immediately noticed that some things were now missing. Drills, sanders. We realized they must have been stolen. I called my mother-in-law and told her about it, and she said to make a police report. What scared me so much about this is that as we did so, everything began to click with that rat trap incident. Somebody had been scoping us out. I would go to our house by myself on many occasions, and I would always have the creeps and feel like I was being watched. My little brother had even remarked before that he felt watched there, and asked if we were sure nobody was in there while we were gone. I noticed today when I was there alone, My dog was acting very nervous and suspicious. She wasn't running around and playing like she usually did, and really didn't want me to go to the backyard or wooded area. I decided to trust her and my gut feeling. I don't know if there are thieves out there in those woods or what, but I really kinda don't want to find out. We're currently in the process of installing some cameras. This had to have been somebody that lives nearby and can monitor how often we're there. Update. We did catch a car pulling in like it was scoping the place out. The people inside never left their car, but they did wait around for a while. We asked a few of my fiance's family members about this, and that was to our detriment. One of them went and spread the word that we had cameras, and somebody in the neighborhood who owned the same type of vehicle we caught on camera slipped up and said they already knew things had been stolen. This to me was basically a confession because we hadn't told anybody about any robbery, at least until the incident with the car was caught on camera. Now, more people than necessary know, and we probably won't ever catch the specific person who did it. We still turn the footage into the police though. Maybe they can dig up some background info. This was a story I grew up hearing my mom telling me. I was really young when this happened, and I know for a fact it must have been before I was 5 years old. I have some foggy memories of something happening, especially because my mom at the time didn't want me to freak out. Some context. First, we have a family all over the country. I remember spending so much of my childhood just on road trips from state to state to visit different family members. We knew our ins and outs on traveling. 2, when I was a child, I would randomly hug strangers a lot and tell them I loved them. I was so filled with joy and love it just spilled over onto other people. There was basically only one stranger I never immediately latched onto the second I saw them, and this is that story. My mom was taking me to visit some relatives, while my dad was staying at home to watch my brothers. She had to go house sit and, in general, was a better caretaker of me than my father was. It only made sense that I go with her. We were driving for hours until we finally hit a rest stop and got out to use the restroom. As we did so, we noticed immediately this guy meandering around the parking lot. According to my mom, it looked like he was closely watching everyone who was entering and leaving. The second we got out of the car, he began to observe us too. My mom held my hand tight as we headed to the restroom, but immediately picked up on the fact that I let go of her hand to hold on to her other hand, the side of her away from the man. Looking back, she told me it was clear somewhere in my tiny child brain, I must have picked up on some sign of danger or something. I seemed to be avoiding the man as much as I could and would quicken my pace to the restroom and car as well. I never did that with any other stranger. I never blatantly avoided another adult like that. Anyway, we do our business and head back to the car. The man had gotten back to his car as well and was now watching us get ready to leave. Only, as we did so, he began to follow us in his own car. My mom immediately realized what was going on and tried to shake him off on the highway. He just wouldn't budge though and tried to get as close to our car as he could. Apparently, while doing this, a semi-truck driver also on the road noticed how frantic and off she was driving and could see her looking back at his car. He realized what was going on and drove up to her side, kinda made eye contact with her. They were on the same page from then on. Turns out the driver had called up on his radio to other truckers in the area and told them what was going on. A bunch of drivers from different routes came onto the same highway we were traveling on. A few minutes later, they began to block the man's car off, essentially completely trapping him away from my mother and I. She turned onto an exit to get off the highway to another rest stop as the original truck driver followed us. The man still boxed in by the other trucks. He got out and talked to my mom and told her he'd picked up on what was happening. He asked us if we were okay and drove with us to a Burger King. He even got us something to eat. We talked quite a lot, and he followed us back onto the road until eventually we went our separate routes. My friends and I enjoy hiking mountain bike trails in the woods on a mountain nearby our houses. One day they couldn't go outside though, so I brought my younger sister with me instead. I was also going to bring my little brother, but he was going to be a little bit late, since today he was staying at a friend's house. This day was a little bit rainy and was also quite cold. Nobody would be out hiking the trails today. They had never seen what my friends and I had been working on the past couple of months either, so that was the day to show them. Basically, you walk straight down a trail. When it turns 90 degrees, you go to the right just off it, then around a bend. There's an overgrown, abandoned forest road at this area. At the end of this forest road, we had made a small trail that led to the bottom of our MTB trail. My sister and I waited for my little brother to arrive, but then my mom called me, telling me my brother didn't know where to go. I told my sister to go all the way back to wait for him outside the trail in our neighborhood. She never saw him though. He decided since he didn't know where to go despite the clear instructions that he was just going to go back home, which my mom called to inform me. I called my sister to tell her to come back up the trail to meet up with me, telling her very clearly to make sure nobody was following her. This wasn't for our safety, but so nobody would discover these trails me and my friends were building. We wanted it to stay a secret. Something about this time was a bit different though. As my sister began to walk back down the trail, I could see through the forest all the way across the road to where she was on her way up. Then I thought to myself, wait, was she wearing a white jacket before? I realized as this figure got more towards the clearing that this was not my little sister. This was a fully grown man. Nobody should have known about this trail, and even if they did, they would have no reason to come up here. Plus, the rain the past couple of days had made most of the trail muddy, extremely muddy. I started running down the trail, then hid behind a tree so I could call my sister and tell her not to come back. All of a sudden, I heard someone call out to me, "What are you doing?" It was my little sister. She had already made it all the way back up to where I was. I knew what was happening now. This man was following my sister specifically. I was terrified. I could tell my sister was starting to pick up something serious was going on as well. I grabbed her and hid her behind a tree with me. We waited for around 10 minutes, but I didn't see the person anywhere. There was no way to go but up the trail towards us, so unless this person was hiding in the trees off the forest road, they must have turned back. We started to make our way back as quickly and quietly as possible. I started to get the sense though that I was being watched. We made it to our bikes, which were thankfully still there. It seemed the man hadn't tried to steal them. I told my sister to grab her bike so we could walk through the rest of the trail without the noise of our hub clicking. This way we could hear everything going on around us. As we got towards the entrance of where the forest was, it was much easier to see the footprints. There was one set of large boot prints deep on top of my sister's smaller footprints, meaning they were more recent. I confirmed I was 100% not going insane. Once we got out of the forest, we started riding our bikes to the neighborhood, and I made sure to stay back to see we weren't being followed. We made it back home just fine in the end. We told our parents, who were just glad I was out there as well. All I could think about was what if my sister had been alone, or if the man had caught her while he was following her on the trail. What would have happened to her in the end? I don't like to think about it. So this happened to my little brother and I. We'll name him Dylan for confidentiality purposes. When we lived together a few years back, I was a 25-year-old man, and my little brother was 19 years old. We were just relaxing at home playing some Halo 3 on the Xbox, smoking a bowl and being brothers, hanging out in our usually daily days off from work. It was a Saturday night in mid-summer of 2009. We lived in a fairly quiet neighborhood. The neighbors were just far enough apart that you had plenty of privacy, and they'd never snoop into your business. It was still close enough though to all know each other, as our parents had lived in the house for years, and this was our childhood home. When my parents retired, they moved away and left the house to us, so we never had to worry about a roof over our heads. Now, our house was at the end of the cul-de-sac with a garage door to the right and our front door up 4 steps to the left of the window between our garage door. From our kitchen, you could see straight out when the curtains were open. This particular night would grow to haunt my brother and I to this very day. After a few hardcore hours of gaming, it was about 3 o'clock in the morning. My brother needed to get up to stretch his legs and relax his hands a bit. He went downstairs to grab some water and a snack, when suddenly he came sprinting back up. He locked the door, freaking the hell out. I looked at him, confused as hell. "What's wrong, man?" With a pale, ghost-white face, he looked over to me. There's a guy on the porch with his hands cuffed against the window, smiling ear to ear. We started to hear 5 knocks at the door in a very peculiar pattern. We froze in our tracks, slowly backing away from the door. I got under my bed and grabbed my bat I kept underneath, just in case I'd ever need to defend myself. I gave the bat to Dylan, as he was much taller than me and had longer arms. It would be more beneficial to him. We both tiptoed back over to the bedroom door and unlocked it slowly. We cracked open the door, just enough to peek out of. All of a sudden, the man began to knock over and over. Before you knew it, he had knocked at least 30 times, then just stopped. I told Dylan to grab my cell phone and call 911 and slam the door shut once more. He did so, and dispatch sent officers our way immediately. While on the phone, the man went around the back of our house. We could hear screaming coming from the backyard. The man was there, looking into our bedroom window with that creepy-ass smile. We stayed out of the line of sight, peeking from the corners as much as we could. Suddenly, the man took off in a full-on sprint and threw himself against our back door. She told the units to step it up, as now he was trying to break our back door as well. We could hear the sirens closing in faster and faster as the man continued to bash himself into our door for some reason. On the 3rd bash, we heard the door crash open. We stayed as quiet as possible, listening to things in the kitchen being smashed to hell. The man was screaming out, come out, wherever you are!" I whispered to dispatch that he was downstairs in the kitchen. She told the officers he'd made entry, and one unit said they were close. We readied our weapons as we heard footsteps creaking up the stairs. Blue lights could be seen illuminating the house. We heard the police calling out. The man booked it back down the stairs, only to get tackled by an officer and handcuffed after a bit of struggle. We came out when the officers cleared the house and made sure it was safe. The man was high on meth, looking to rob us for another quick fix, I guess. We're thankful the officers arrived when they did. We thanked them until the moment they left. The police officer that tackled the man even came by from time to time to check on us and played video games with us a few times as well. I still get nightmares from that man's creepy-ass smile.